Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Halifax.
Hello and welcome to the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand in for Todd this morning. It was a warm morning, wasn't it? 16 degrees on the way in when I jumped in my truck this morning and made the commute to the radio station. There's a big change on the horizon, though. Our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, says we'll see lows drop down to as much as 8 tonight, maybe a little bit cooler as you move inland. Allister will be here in hour number 3 today to take a look at the weekend forecast once he gets the latest data, and we'll share that with you as you plan. This is now officially the last weekend of summer, right? As I understand it, fall takes over on Monday, so all this time that I've been saying that summer was over, now I'm almost correct. Anyway, Blue Jays last night, ouch, right? Geez, Tampa in the rearview now, and thank goodness for that. Still 3 up on the Yankees in the American League East. Magic numbers, I think, are still 3-6, and those series will the Blue Jays will continue the run. I think there's 9 games left in the regular season, and you can catch those right here on 95.7 News Radio. And speaking of sports, Halifax Moosehead season begins tonight. Gareth McDonald is back. I had a conversation with him yesterday. He's pumped up for the season. Owen Phillips has got the C for the Moose this year. Hammond's Plains boy. 7 o'clock tonight, right here on 95.7 News Radio. So make sure that you tune in. And, of course, the home opener is tomorrow. Might be a little bit of a logistics problem there if you're planning to go to the game. McDonald Bridge is closed all weekend this weekend. But Halifax Harbor Bridges sent us a release yesterday saying that they're going to offer up free Halifax transit passes for this weekend to kind of bridge that gap. I know a lot of you use the McDonald when you go to I almost said Metro Centre. Dating myself again, to Scotiabank. But the trick here is that you need to pop into their offices on Wise Road to get them, and you can get a maximum of 4. So if you want to take the bus to the game, there is an option for you. If you were listening to the program yesterday, I made an appeal again to the Premier of Nova Scotia to relax some of the restrictions on the woods in the lower half of Nova Scotia. And lo and behold, yesterday, at 4 o'clock, the woods ban came off all counties in Nova Scotia, except for Annapolis County, which I think we can understand. So you can travel in the woods. The fire bans are still on, right? So make sure you adhere to that. But you can travel now, and you can get into those places that you haven't been able to get into. I know the Premier and I, off the air during our conversation on Tuesday, I told him that the trout population was very thankful that those bans were on because I haven't been able to get out and do any fishing. But with the rivers, then the state that they are, and all of this heat and humidity, I think we'll let the fish be for the rest of the year so that they can deal with the water conditions. But the woods ban is off. That's the good news. And just quickly before we get to our first guest this morning, did you hear the comments from the American ambassador yesterday? He was in Halifax, Pete Hoekstra, for a Halifax Chamber of Commerce event, and he said, and I quote, "I'm disappointed that I came to Canada, a Canada that where it's very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the American-Canadian relationship. You ran a campaign where it was anti-American, elbows up. It was an anti-American campaign. That's continued. That's disappointing." That from the American ambassador. might be something you want to talk about in the open hour today when we throw open those telephone lines. That's going to begin at 11 o'clock today. Now, it's probably been too long, maybe not often enough that our next guest is in here, because it's always good to connect up with the people that represent us at different forms of government. And that, of course, we do lots of city, a lot of provincial and federal, but maybe not as much federal as we should. Braedon, maybe we can fix that. Please welcome into the studio the MP for the Bedford and Sackville. Wait, let me get it right. Sackville, Bedford, Preston.
You got it.
See, I want to be accurate. And that is Braedon Clark. Braedon, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. Thank you for having me. I will say I'm going to the Mooseheads game tomorrow.
Right.
So thank you for the travel advice off the top.
It'll be a good season, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited. My kids are looking forward to it.
Right.
They're going to
so
have a great
much
time.
fun, right?
It's
for
awesome.
those that haven't been to that place, like the Scotiabank Centre really, I mean, we get the second highest crowds in the queue, right? So it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be great tomorrow.
Now, Braedon, just as, I don't know if it was a red eye, but flew in from Ottawa last night to join us here on the program this morning. We appreciate you getting up early.
Of course.
Braedon, you were busy yesterday on the floor of the House of Commons and introduced a private member's bill dealing with housing for young Canadians. First of all, tell me a little bit about the bill and the genesis of getting it to the floor.
Great question. So Bill C-227, it's an act to establish a national housing strategy for young Canadians. And it's something that I started working on, honestly, over 3 years ago when I was an MLA here in Nova Scotia. I was the housing critic for our party at the time. And, I always felt that young people in particular are disproportionately impacted by the housing crisis. I don't think that's an opinion. That's a fact in my view. And I introduced a bill in the Nova Scotia Assembly 3 years ago. I was in opposition, of course. I didn't have the votes to move on that. But after I was elected in April, there's this lottery system, actually, for non-ministers in the House of Commons.
Right.
So it's a literal lottery.
So you all put your names in a hat.
Basically, yeah. I imagine like an Abe Lincoln top hat or something, and they draw your names. And I'm number 8.
Right.
I was number 8 of 300, so lucky for me. So I got a chance to introduce my bill, which was introduced yesterday. It's going to go through the legislative process. We'll need help from other parties to get it done, but I see it as a relatively nonpartisan thing, I hope. The idea is to establish a national strategy for young Canadians, particularly between 17 and 34, through the Minister of Housing. And there's also reporting requirements so that the minister works on this report, has a conference with provincial territorial leaders, nonprofit housing organizations, and so on. And then every couple of years, there's a requirement to come back to the House and say, this is how we're doing, because that's a really important piece. Sometimes we pass bills and we just say, hey, we did it.
Right.
I think it's really important to keep those review and reporting things in. So if there are issues developing, we don't let it get to the point where we've seen it.
So would it create an agency? Would it be under another agency? How would it work?
So it would be within the Minister of Housing
Right.
and Infrastructure. And one of the things, not to get too technical for the listeners, but with private members' bills, we cannot mandate that the government spend new money.
Okay.
That's just a rule. So as much as I'd love to say, spend $5 billion on youth housing, that I just literally can't do that as a rule. So that's why you see a lot of private members' bills are things like strategies and,
Right.
things of that nature, so that we can get an issue on the table and get attention, which hopefully then leads to, action and funding as well.
We know housing has been a priority for the government already this year. We heard the Prime Minister, I think he was in Newfoundland and Labrador, announcing big plans for housing. Last weekend, we heard like 4,000 homes and those kind of things. Would this be part of that, or would this be something that would be kind of ancillary to it?
I think it would be complementary, but yeah, I think Build Canada Homes that you're referring to, Dan,
Right.
is a major initiative. Prime Minister Carney and Minister Gregor Robertson, leading that. And as you say, we announced the first group of projects last week, 6 across the country. One's in Dartmouth, Shannon Park lands, which are, they're in my colleague Darren Fisher's riding, but literally across the bridge from me, like
Right.
100 feet away. So that will be hundreds of units there. And there are 4,000 units in the initial group, but the full build out from that first group is actually 45,000. $13 billion committed to it. We want to work on prefabricated housing, modular housing, and the real focus for that program is non-market housing, affordable housing. So I think it's a great thing, and I'm really happy that we have one of the first projects, in our backyard.
Is there a shovel in the ground date on that yet?
It's going to start. Land remediation will start this fall, so like now,
Right.
more or less, and then construction will start once we get through the winter. So it's the nice thing about those sites is that they are quote shovel ready almost in most cases. That
Right.
was the idea. So hopefully we should see movement on that very quickly.
Braedon, your private member's bill, you say it needs his help. Obviously, you've shopped this around to your caucus colleagues. Do you have support in the caucus for this, or are they all in support of what you're trying to accomplish with this?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to be doing between now and the middle of October. So in about a month's time, the bill will be up for second reading for debate. So my job between now and then is to work the phones, talk to all my colleagues, and importantly, not just in my party. I certainly hope I have their support, and I suspect that I will. But we're in a minority, so we need votes from other parties, no matter what the bill is. So I'm going to sit down with the Conservative critic for housing, Scott Aitchison, who's I think quite a reasonable guy, NDP critic for housing, the Bloc as well, because I do need a handful of votes from other parties to get it passed. I'd love to have unanimous support. That's what I kind of touched on yesterday when I introduced the bill. Because Ottawa can be a pretty partisan place, and that's
There's
part
no
of
doubt about
that's
that.
part of the scene and the system. But I also think youth housing I hope is an issue that's relatively nonpartisan. I think we can all agree there's a big problem there. So I'm hopeful that we can get support from across the political spectrum on it. Yeah.
First week back to work, and I'm putting quotes around that. Was this week. What's the temperature like in Ottawa? What's the feeling like on the floor there?
Well, it's always interesting. There's question period, which is dramatic, and it's a lot of it is for the cameras, to be honest, and that's okay. That's part of the world we live in now. But I think there's some good work happening in committees. I think the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are focused on some big things. Right? We talked about Build Canada Homes. Recently, we announced the first group of major projects, one of which, again, is a Nova Scotia project, an Atlantic project, really, which is Wind West. And I'm really glad that the provincial government here has been pushing that, and I think the federal government is also behind that. So, you can get caught up in the day-to-day, I think, trials and tribulations of political life. But I think in the grand sweep of things, we got some big things we want to do, and the Prime Minister, to his credit, is impatient to get them done, and I think we're going to keep pushing on them. Yeah.
The budget's coming out in November 7th. Any insight you can tell us about what you think is going to be in it, or is that sort of all top secret at this point?
Yeah, I think the Prime Minister and Minister Champagne would be upset at me if I said anything. It's November 4th, actually, I think.
My bad,
yeah. No, and looking forward to it. I think we've got, a lot of these things we've talked about, major new investments in defense, $9 billion in defense spending, which will disproportionately benefit Atlantic Canada and Halifax because we have such a significant military footprint, whether it's shipbuilding or the bases. So I think that's really positive. Build Canada Homes, of course, will be another big one. Earlier, we passed a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, middle-class tax cut. So there's a lot of things that we've done, but there will be more to come on November 4th, and we'll see what's there.
What else is on your agenda? And you have an interesting perspective on things because you have spent time at the provincial legislature and in opposition, and now in Ottawa as on the government side of the bench.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what it's like and what you have planned and what you can tell us about what we can expect from Ottawa in this session.
Well, I think one of the things that I've really tried hard to do over the summer and into the fall here as well is to meet with and work with all of my counterparts that are elected officials from different levels and different parties. I actually don't have any other liberals in my world. All of my MLAs that I overlap with, I think there's 8 or 9, a few NDP members and some PC members. The advantage for me is I know most of them personally from having worked with them. And then the councillors as well. And we met with all of them over the summer just to sit down and say, hey, what's going on in your world, what's going on in my world, so that there's a no surprises policy, because that can lead to unnecessary conflict, I think. So it's positive, I think, to see a good working relationship between the province of Nova Scotia and the federal government. I truly believe that exists, and that benefits both of us and all the people who live here in this province as well.
Braedon, keep us on the loop as this makes its way through the legislative process, and we'll welcome you back when we get to the vote time.
Great.
Thanks for spending some time with us today. I know it was a pretty tight schedule to get here with your flight last night. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
That is Braedon Clark, the MP for Sackville, Bedford, Preston, who introduced a private member's bill yesterday that, if it passes, would create a national strategy on housing for young Canadians. Time to stop, take our first break here on the Fabulous Friday edition of the program. When we come back, a conversation with the leader of the official opposition in Nova Scotia, NDP leader Claudia Chender, will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
All right, welcome back. This is the Fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day as we roll towards the weekend. We know that next week is fall officially, and the fall session of the provincial legislature will kick off, and we're very pleased to welcome into the program today to give us a little bit of a preview what the opposition has planned for this session, NDP leader Claudia Chender. Claudia, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you?
I am wonderful. We had a conversation with the Premier earlier this week, said no strong mayor powers are coming for Halifax's mayor or any other mayor in Nova Scotia this session. Were you surprised he said that?
I wasn't actually. I think it was a foolish idea to begin with, and I think the reality is, for better or for worse, the provincial government has shown that they can do a lot in the municipal sphere without those powers. And, you know, we have a pretty functional order of government in the municipality. We just came through an election where people across this province voted for, the people they wanted to represent them at the table. And I think weakening the powers of those elected councillors would have been a bad and also unpopular move. So I think the Premier read the room and made the right decision on this one.
It's we always kind of kid around here that these sessions of the Nova Scotia legislature are kind of short. In fact, they're very short. Obviously, you have to try and jam as much in as you can, as quickly as you can, because you never really know when they're going to end.
Yeah, well, you know, your listeners may not know that in the last session, there were some pretty significant changes that this government pushed through that changed the rules of debate dramatically. And so, you know, in addition, as we were just talking about, to the, you know, government being able to do pretty much what they want in the municipal sphere, they can kind of do whatever they want in the legislature now in a really different way because they can shut down debate. So they've limited public participation, and they've also limited the participation of opposition MLAs in really significant ways. So we'll see how long this session is. It may actually be a little bit longer, but I'm not at all sure what our participation is going to look like. It really depends on how much the government wants to hear from the public and from the public via their representatives. And I would say their track record on that isn't great, Dan.
Claudia, I think I'll agree. Claudia, we know that affordability is probably going to be top of agenda for many on this session, and one of the two major pieces that I've been hearing a lot about, of course, are the Halifax water increase of 36% and of course, Nova Scotia Power planning to raise the rates. I got an email from Nova Scotia Power yesterday that trumpeted that they sharpened their pencils and that they were able to reduce the average rate increase for each rate class as they submitted their proposals. They dropped it from, what was it, 4.1 to a 3.9% increase,
3.8,
or whatever it was. Yeah. So a small victory, maybe, but this is still going to be a big increase for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's going to make a meaningful difference for most folks. I think we're in a situation where since the Houston government came to power, people's bills have gone up about $400 a year, which is a pretty astonishing amount for most Nova Scotians. And I think that's not going to make much difference. But at the end of the day, you know, this government has to act. And, there's lots of things this government can do to lower people's bills. Certainly, we've talked a lot about efficiency, and I've talked a lot about that on this program, helping people to use less, but also, change the way that Nova Scotia Power is held responsible. The Premier has talked a lot about being disappointed in the company or expecting more of the company, but people who own a business know it's not about expectations and empathy. It's about how the company is structured and what's expected of it. And our legislation. And so, this government has some tough choices to make about reining in Nova Scotia Power, and we're going to continue to push them to do that, not just on bills, but on privacy. I mean, people remember that we're on the heels of one of the biggest privacy breaches we've seen from a private company in this province, and the regulator themselves has expressed disappointment in how the company has responded to that. We still don't even know if ratepayers are going to be on the hook for some of the costs associated for that. So we have a real issue in general with the cost and reliability of power. But right now, Dan, winter's coming.
Right.
And I feel like I say that every year now at this time in that ominous way. And the Game of Thrones reference is getting a little bit old, but I think people still get it. And the reality is people need to be able to pay for their power. And so in the interim, what we are going into the legislature recommending is a rebate for people on their bills, because that's something that's within the government's power to do, and it's something Nova Scotians need. While we wait for this government to get serious about housing affordability, while we wait for this government to make changes that really help Nova Scotians to be able to make it month to month on issues that from everything from housing to childcare, we need to make sure that people can afford their power. It's an essential service. So, we'll look forward to the government offering some real relief to Nova Scotians when we get back into the House.
Taking several calls on this file, as you can imagine, Claudia. Some suggesting that it may be time that we look at our relationship with Nova Scotia Power and its parent company, and some going as far to suggest that maybe it's time that the province takes the role of owner of Nova Scotia Power back. Is that something you would consider?
Well, listen, when a PC government sold Nova Scotia Power in 1992, they did so without, as far as the historians can tell, any economic analysis. So what we have said for years now, and we've put this in legislation that we've reintroduced several times, is that that's worth a look. I think when it was sold the first time, that was a pretty ideological decision. Let's let the private sector handle this. It'll work better. Well, I think people have some real questions right now about whether it's working well for Nova Scotians. But I think it would be foolish to make a massive change without understanding the impact. So I think we do need to study that. I think we need to look at the ownership structure and how it benefits Nova Scotians and whether there is a different ownership structure that could benefit them more. But what we say in that bill is that we should look at whether it would benefit Nova Scotians for Nova Scotia Power to come into public ownership in whole or in part, because Nova Scotia Power not only owns, a lot of the energy production in the province from wind to coal, but they also own our transmission grid. And our transmission grid needs a lot of work, as anyone who loses a lot knows. But is also crucial to our energy future. So if these big wind projects happen, if we really do move towards renewables and finally get off coal, which we have to do, that grid needs work. So I think we need to look at all of that. I think those are really important questions, but they need to be looked at in a really serious way, and we need a real economic analysis to see if that would make sense.
Claudia, only got a couple minutes left, but the other big increase that many people are staring down in the coming years is that 36% increase at Halifax Water. Is there anything, do you think, that the Premier on Tuesday said that he was pretty disappointed in that too? Is there anything, do you think, that we can or you can do as a provincial government to maybe force the matter on that?
Well, Halifax Water is a municipal utility, so strictly speaking, no. But I think all of this, everything we're talking about goes to the issue of affordability. And I think affordability is top of mind for people. We have a lot of people across this province who are working, who have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 jobs in a household just to make things work. And we shouldn't have to live like that. And so I think we need to get serious about affordability. I think both, Nova Scotia Power and Halifax Water, although very different, a lot of this is about infrastructure and those costs. I think we could, it would be good to see a collaborative relationship with the federal government where we could look to the federal government for funds for some of that really vital infrastructure with Halifax Water. The reality is those costs from Halifax Water and the upgrades that are needed are directly delaying housing, nonprofit housing. These are the folks that we hear real frustration from about these rates because they're so expensive, not just for everyday folks for whom it is also a huge burden to pay those bills. So I think we have to get serious about looking at affordability. And I think, based on what we're hearing federally, and we'll see what the government says tomorrow provincially, we're facing some tough economic headwinds. And so certainly we're going to be encouraging, governments at all levels, but in our playground, in the provincial government, to really, really take a beat and help Nova Scotians understand how, they're going to get through the next couple of years and how we can make sure people are feeling supported.
Claudia, I'm sure we'll be in touch throughout the session.
Great. Thanks so much, Dan.
That is Claudia Chender, the leader of Nova Scotia's NDP and the leader of the official opposition, as we get ready to get back to work at the provincial legislature here in Nova Scotia. How long the session is anyone's guess. Nova Scotia traditionally has short sessions, but maybe this one will be longer. Maybe I'm just being an optimist. I don't know. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break here on the Fabulous Friday edition of the program. When we come back, we'll connect up with our good friends from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data, that being Tim Powers. What's going on in Ottawa? It's been a busy week with the MPs getting back to work, and we'll dig into some of the big stories from the nation's capital with Tim Powers when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We're back in minutes.
Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders, and this is the Fabulous Friday edition of the program as we get you set up for the weekend. Still in this half hour, a conversation with the president of the Halifax Professional Fire Fighters Association, the union that representing firefighters calling for change in the leadership at HRFE. We'll dig into that when we come back from the break. But first, lots to talk about, as there always is, when we welcome our next guest in, with Ottawa announcing plans for housing and the U.S. ambassador to the United States stopping by Halifax and, I don't know, scolding us maybe a little bit. And that laugh that you hear, of course, is our good friend, Tim Powers. Tim, how are you, brother?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, the U.S. ambassador's Halifax trip, Dan, is getting a lot. I was hearing all about it on Ottawa morning radio this morning. They're they've taken to taking a poke at him and calling him Pete Huckster as opposed to Hoekstra. So even up here, I mean, you got the Ontarians riled, Dan. I mean, that takes a lot.
I'm disappointed that I came to Canada, that where it's very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the Canadian-American relationship. You ran a campaign where it was anti-American, elbows up. It was an anti-American campaign. That has continued. That's disappointing. It just felt like he was that he had us lined up, in detention hall and was scolding us for being badly behaved.
I guess he also forgot that, last week was the 24th anniversary of 9/11 when Canadians all across this country stood strongly and rightly with our American neighbors and housed many of them who were stranded and built, personal relationships all across the United States, and those relationships are still maintained. It's great if you're going to scold somebody, but maybe you and your administration should take some responsibility with it, whether you liked Justin Trudeau or not, personally insulting him as another world leader, going after, creating falsehoods about the drug trade between Canada and the United States over the fentanyl. Yeah, the ambassador perhaps should get out of his glass house and have a look around.
He said a cabinet minister, this is a quote, a cabinet minister came out and said it's a trade war with the United States. We're at war with the United States. He went on to say, I think that's a dangerous place to go. Well, what else would you call it?
Hey, listen, as Todd knows, I'm in the business where we use aluminum cans, and we're feeling it. I don't call it a. It's not a pillow fight we're in. No. It's certainly more than that. I mean, look, I get what Ambassador Hoekstra is trying to do, and he's trying to send a message, but Americans in Canada lecturing Canadians about how we are somehow offside, maybe not the best communications approach.
No, not to say the least. And anyway,
maybe he's trying to impress his bosses in Washington, and so many of the Trump cabinet and ambassadors and others who are appointed by him always want to stay in his good graces. So I guess that's probably what he was trying to do, but he's supposed to facilitate relationships between us in a positive vein, and I don't think that was. And Halifax, I mean, the history of Halifax and Atlantic Canada and the United States, I mean, so many workers from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island go down and build the east coast of the U.S., have housed their navies and do so gladly, and militaries have fought together. Like, come on, man, read some history, will you?
Right, I get it. Tim, we're back at work, obviously, in Ottawa. There was a lot of talk about the showdown on Parliament Hill. Mark Carney with his white cowboy hat on, and Mr. Polyev on the other side, and there was the old street scene from the Western. I mean, there was a little bit of back and forth, but to me, it just didn't have the spark that I thought it was going to have.
Yeah, I mean, they were both civil to each other, which was actually nice to see in the opening days. And Pierre Poilievre has taken a more Mulcair, or some are describing him as Diefenbaker approach. Even you and I are too old, right, young Dan, to know
even before my time.
Diefenbaker was like in the House of Commons. But he's gotten more pointed and less personal in some of his questions toward the Prime Minister. I mean, Pierre Poilievre even thanked the Prime Minister for the early by-election, made a joke about it. I think both are somewhat conscious that going too far is not going to be the way to go. And also, Prime Minister has been in Mexico. So I suspect, as is always the case in Parliament, each passing day, they get more irritated with each other and the rhetoric goes up. So by the time we get to Christmas, Dan, we'll have forgotten we had a conversation about, they seem to generally be mild, if not sedated, in their first week.
Prime Minister is wrapping up a 2-day trip to Mexico City today. This is all part of the process, I do believe, as we start to begin the renegotiation of CUSMA. What can the Prime Minister hope to accomplish with talks, bilateral talks with the Mexican president?
I think part of this is about making sure both Mexico and Canada are generally aligned, because Canada is not going to want Mexico to have a better side deal than they get. And you will remember Mexico kind of does at the moment. They were given a 90-day reprieve on some of the other tariffs, and I think they want to be as strategically aligned as they can with the Americans. And also, we do have trade with Mexico. We've had it for a while, keeping that all aligned. And I think with so much focus on the U.S., it's not unwise for Canada to make sure that the one who's more likely to be feeling the similar heat, that they share perspectives and strategy where they can.
President Trump had the royal purple carpet rolled out for him. Isn't
that what you get every day when you go to work?
Well, that's just it. Actually, it's Vanessa that gets the purple carpet because she really.
Well, Vanessa should, but who gets the gold carriage? You, Todd, or Vanessa?
Todd left coffee stains on it last time, so we're just not allowed to use it anymore.
There you go. Look, he ruined it for everybody. Sorry, what was the serious question you had?
With Donald Trump getting the as he called it, unprecedented second state visit to the United Kingdom, almost the United States, and it appears that that strategy worked, at least for Prime Minister Starmer. Got some deals done. Is that Trump 101 now? We have to lavish him with gifts and pomp and circumstance in order to get business done.
Oh, he is one who likes the pandering and the fawning. Absolutely. I mean, Summer is not super popular in the UK at the moment, so he probably had some room to irritate people further. Prime Minister Carney, as you know, took some criticism at the G7 when it was in Alberta for being equally positive. Look, I think you just have to be a good host. And if you go a little over the top and hopes that it pays benefits, then who really cares in the long run? But apparently, according to Pete Hoekstra, we're not doing that. So I guess we have lessons to learn from the Brits. Get out the landau that King Charles rode in when he was here in May and let President Trump ride down the streets of Ottawa. Though I think if he were to come here, the people would be respectful, but there'd be some significant protests if the president were to come to Ottawa. Alberta was more constrained, but we'll see.
I don't know if we are. Is there any kind of hint that there's a plan?
No suggestion that's in the offing at the moment. But it used to be.
He was the first. Canada was the first visit, right?
Canada was the first spot, but Canada hasn't gone out of its way either to ask the president to come to the nation's capital. Anyway.
Tim, have a fantastic weekend, sir. I hope you get a chance to get back home in the next few weeks because it's fall and it's the best time of the year out here.
It is. Atlantic Canada is at its best in the fall. Pete Hoekstra, too bad you didn't realize that when you were poo-pooing us. Have a good day, Dan.
All right, Tim. We'll talk to you next week. That's Tim Powers from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data. Boy, that wasn't. I wasn't expecting the U.S. ambassador to go down that route, and it just. I felt like when I watched the clips from the chamber dinner or the Chamber of Commerce event, I just felt like I did something wrong. And I felt like I was being scolded by a parent or by a teacher. It was just well, I think that he's got out of bounds, to be honest. I'm curious what you think. We're going to, of course, open up the phone lines here in just a few minutes' time, and we're going to get your thoughts on Mr. Hoekstra's, the U.S. ambassador's comments here in Halifax yesterday. That'll be part of the open hour, the Friday Free for All. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break. When we come back, the union that represents firefighters in HRM not happy with the leadership within HRFE. We'll get to the bottom of it when we meet with the president of the Halifax Professional Fire Fighters Association. Right after the break, you're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. You may have seen this in the various media outlets throughout the city when this release came out, this press release came out earlier this week with the Halifax Professional Fire Fighters now calling for a change in leadership within HRFE within Halifax, Halifax Fire Department. Very pleased to welcome into the program today to give us a little context on the whole thing, the president of Halifax Professional Fire Fighters, and that is Braedon Clark. Braedon, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Now, I've been doing this for a while, and I've been in Halifax for a while. I don't remember a call for a change in leadership happening within the fire department before. Is this unprecedented?
It may not be unprecedented. There have been, historically over the decades, there have been periods of time where chiefs and the union have come to a point where the relationship was no longer viable to continue. We represent the firefighters that are going to be here forever. Chiefs change, union presidents change too. But I am speaking for the members of our department, and they have begged me to go public with the concerns that we've had for years now.
Braedon, tell me where this comes from. This boils all the way back as far as the Tantallon wildfires.
Oh, it goes well before the Tantallon wildfires. In fact, since around 2018, our union has been advocating for a call-in procedure when we have surge demand times so that we can upstaff our trucks, bring in off-duty firefighters to make sure that the city's well covered and that the firefighters that are working emergencies are well resourced. This fire chief has repeatedly refused a process that triggers a call-in of off-duty people when we have a 3-alarm fire. Then we had Tantallon, and they delayed sending extra resources for hours, and our crews, worked straight through, no breaks, and then they finally did call in people after we lost 151 houses. And in the days that followed, we had the former city councillor for Hammonds Plains on your show asking for the military to come help, and we had 200 off-duty firefighters that the chief wouldn't call in while he exploited volunteers and resources from outside HRM, and characterized Hammonds Plains as an unforeseen event, and that's just not true. We know as responders, as the firefighters bring in the services, we know what is coming often, and we know that we need to be better prepared. 2 years later, after the wildfire, we had a post-incident analysis that was released on a long weekend in August, 15 months after the fire, that referenced this need to call people in, a system to be developed. I spoke to the chief, talked about methods that we could employ. He took no action. They hired a manager in the spring of 2024 to create a wildfire response. And this June in Austria Lake, they were evacuating a community. And again, no call-in of off-duty personnel. Weather and resources on hand led to a successful outcome there where there were no homes lost. Right. But again, we would have been so far behind by the time they had done the right thing that we would have had another catastrophe that he would have characterized as unforeseeable again. And we don't accept that anymore. So in the days following the Austria Lake fire in June, we reached out to the chief, asked about what was being done to prepare for this response, and he said that he had been unable to get motor vehicle inspections on the sprinkler protection units that they had purchased for over $200,000. When I finished the meeting with him, I contacted the mechanic in charge. He said that those units had been inspected for over a month and actually moved to our training ground, and nobody responsible for those had checked up on them in preparation for this season. This isn't the only example, but it codifies a chief whose priorities are not where they should be. We see him as more focused on communicating to the public and the city council that he's purchased equipment and put people in place, but he doesn't ensure that those people and those resources are actually ready to serve the public and for our firefighters to use. We think it's time for change. This is one example and one situation of many.
Braedon had a conversation with HRFE in the hours after that big fire up in Middle Sackville, and one of the things that kind of piqued my interest about that conversation was I said it was a long night, and I don't remember who it was, the deputy chief told me that they had sent relief, but it was until many hours after. Was that the case? Did those guys stay on that fire scene for that long?
I was working that night, and I work at Bayers Road. My crew were sent to Clayton Park to cover off. We were I believe we were the only truck in service between Sackville and Halifax, and it takes 14 firefighters in 11 minutes, as we know in our service delivery standard, to respond to a 2,000 square foot home. And we have communities filled with high rises, and we brought no firefighters in off duty.
Have they said why? Like that's just shocking to me. And I know that what you do and what we do here are apples and oranges. I get that. But, when something big happens here, I mean, there's a fan out, we call people in. Why is there such a resistance to call in people on overtime? Is it basically because it's overtime they don't have the budget, or they don't want to pay it?
Well, it appears that they don't want to pay it. And they'll bring volunteers into some stations in the suburban communities that for the most part, don't have the exposure to the urban response experience, dealing with high rises, standpipes, and many of those challenges. And he will say that everything is the same, but objectively, there's vast differences in training and experience and prerequisites for positions there. And they get away with it so often where we don't have that second call, that second big fire, that they just they get away with it, and the public don't realize how exposed we are. Back in 2018, in April, there was a fire on Primrose in Dartmouth, the 4-story apartment building. It was a large fire. A woman passed away as a result of the fire, and we think we did close to 30 rescues that night from that building. And the crew that arrived at 12:30, other than changing their SCBA air bottles, didn't get a break until the oncoming crew at 8 a.m. showed up on the scene to relieve them. We had a second fire come in that night, and we lost half of our crews there. And since then, we had a fire at the CN rail yard where we had a large warehouse involved.
Right.
No overtime was called in. We lost crews there. We tried to deal with these issues internally, and we tried to do it communicating with the CAO, City Council, and I don't think they realize the severity and the frequency, but our members are telling us that they don't want this anymore. This chief is putting us in a position where we're going to have a crisis in succession long term, and we're going to have more risk to our firefighters in the short term if nothing changes.
Braedon, appreciate you spending some time with us today and raising this issue.
I appreciate the opportunity, Dan. Thank you very much.
That is the president of the Halifax Professional Firefighters Union, Braedon Marr. We did here on the program reach out to Halifax Fire to have them to come on to explain, or to not to explain, but to offer them the same opportunity that we just offered the union. That was denied. Instead, we have a statement that was issued from HRM on behalf of the Commissioner of Public Safety, and that is Bill Moore, and it reads this. Halifax Regional Municipality is aware of concerns raised by Halifax Professional Firefighters Association on September 16th of 2025. That was earlier this week. The acting chief administrative officer has asked me, in my role as Commissioner of Public Safety, to review the matter, and that the process is currently underway. As the municipality and the union are currently engaged in the collective bargaining process, and this involves personnel-related issues, the municipality will not be providing further comment at this time. That from HRM on behalf of the Commissioner of Public Safety, Bill Moore. We're going to stop. Blake's going to update us on the news. On the other side of it, time for the Friday free-for-all. The open hour will kick off. You can talk about whatever it is, but I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are on comments made here in Halifax yesterday by the ambassador to the United States, Pete Hoekstra. We'll run those for you, and then we'll open up the lines after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Facts. Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform, trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team, or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
All right, welcome back. It's the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. It's right there. You can see the weekend, can't you? The last official weekend of summer, and Monday we become fall. It becomes fall, technically anyway. But it looks like we're going to have a half-decent weekend, maybe a little bit cool, but more sunshine for those of you looking for rain. Unfortunately, some scattered showers, but not anything to write home about, so to speak. No, there's still many of you over there across the harbor that are still dealing with mandatory water restrictions on Lake Meagher. We know that the forests are still dry, and but the Premier yesterday announcing that the restrictions, at least the travel ban portion of the restrictions on the remaining counties were lifted yesterday as of 4 o'clock. So places like Lunenburg County and Shelburne and down in Yarmouth and the remaining counties, with the exception of the Annapolis County, which I think many of us can still understand, considering that the Long Lake wildfire is still there. It's still burning, right? It's the last report I saw on it was that it was being held, and there were some restrictions that were lifted, I think it was earlier this week, that people were able to go back to their properties, and they were going to turn power onto some of those properties as well. But the remaining counties in Nova Scotia, you can go for a hike, you can take a walk in the woods, and I know that is something that I'm planning to do this weekend, because there are some areas that I've been wanting to go into that I haven't been able to because of those restrictions. And I look forward to spending some time, because as I told Tim, and I've told you many times here on this program, fall is the best time of the year in Atlantic Canada. It's we're so very lucky to live where we are. Anyway, this is the open hour. Enough of me talking. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The Friday free-for-all, your chance to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. Something that we touched on this week, something that we didn't talk about this week. Those all fair game. This is like the catch-all at the end of the week. If we miss something and you want to raise it, here's a perfect opportunity to do so. Often imitated, never duplicated. The Friday free-for-all right here on the Todd Veinotte Show. Lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Your chance to get on early so you're not disappointed. We have had busy lines all week. We had a conversation with the Premier of the province, Tim Houston. I believe it was Tuesday. It feels like it was a month ago now, but it was Tuesday. And he made a number of statements. One of them, of course, strong mayor powers. And that is something that you may want to talk about. Also, the big news over the last little bit, of course, the last 24 hours was a visit to Halifax by the United States Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, who made a stop here on the program, or not on the program, I wish, in Halifax to address the Halifax Chamber of Commerce. And some of the comments made at that event yesterday were perhaps a scolding, perhaps maybe a venting. I'm trying to find the right way to describe this. Anyway, if you haven't heard it, Vanessa, we have the audio for that. We do. Ready? The U.S. ambassador to Canada made a stop in Halifax where he was a critic of the popular saying "elbows up." Pete Hoekstra leveled his criticisms at the event hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, the ambassador telling the business audience that expression is anti-American.
I came to Canada, a Canada that it is very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the American-Canadian relationship. You ran a campaign where, it was anti-American, elbows up, Me Too. It was an anti-American campaign. That has continued. That's disappointing.
Hoekstra also took issue with people that use the term trade war to describe economic tensions between the two countries. The finance minister, who is, of course, Francois-Philippe Champagne, said yesterday that it was sad that the United States turned its back on Canada by starting this trade war. My question to you is your thoughts on this. Comments, series of comments made by the U.S. ambassador to Canada here in Halifax, saying that he was disappointed by anti-American sentiment, and that we shouldn't be calling the ongoing trade dispute between Canada and the United States as a trade war. Well, my opinion on the whole thing is that if we can't or we shouldn't call it a trade war, then what is it? President of the United States has made it very clear that he's not happy with the trade imbalance. No matter what number he throws out, most of them are inflated, and has imposed a series of tariffs on the import of Canadian goods. What else would you call it? And because of the behavior of the President of the United States with regards to the relationship between our two countries, then this elbows up campaign and this anti-American sentiment is probably warranted. Now, I know many of you out there are going to suggest that we're not mad at Americans, and I don't think we are. I think that we're probably upset with the administration in the United States and some of the tactics being employed by the U.S. President Donald Trump. But I call out of bounds to Pete Hoekstra for saying that that we shouldn't have done that. I know I'm paraphrasing it, but that's kind of what I got out of it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones and welcome James to the show. James, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
What's on your mind?
Yes, Nova Scotia Power, they've slightly reduced their requested rate increase from
0.2, what is it, 0.2%?
Right, 4.1 to 3.9, yep. So be it. The Premier has indicated that the provincial government will be, quote, intervening at the regulatory board hearing.
Yeah, he said so on Tuesday when he was here. He said that they were going to look at intervening into it. Yep.
I just wanted to make sure everyone understands that intervening, to my understanding, they just appear and say they're not happy, that they're not taking action. They're just going to intervene, just like lots of other people will be lined up to. It's just a technical term. The regulatory board calls it.
Yeah, they're not stopping it. They're going to have they're going to have an audience with the Nova Scotia Energy Board or whoever the regulator is, and they'll say their piece and then be dismissed.
Correct. However, there is a possibility to take concrete action. They've actually done it in the past. I won't get into the detail, but to be one specific proposal that's on the table, and Claudia Chender, leader of the opposition, has referred to it, I think, earlier today. The NDP is proposing via legislation they'll be tabling as soon as they can in this session to give every Nova Scotia Power customer, certainly every residential. I didn't read the fine print. I'm not sure about commercial and industrial. But anyway, every residential, a 10% reduction in their power bill for indefinitely, not forever, but starting soon and until further notice. In other words, just to get over the hump. Winter's coming, power rates are high, and yes, so this would be government money to pay for the 10%
taxpayers'
rebate.
money. Yep, absolutely.
Refund, whatever you want to call it.
Rebate.
Rebate is probably the best word. the regulatory board will do whatever it does, but even if they allow a 3.9% times 2 increase, people would still get this 10% rebate to kind of offset, shall we say. So you're paying with one hand and getting back from the government, but it's better than not getting back anything because, we all know a lot of people are hurting, and the Premier specifically rejected the proposed rebate for low-income people.
Will be interesting, James, to see if the government follows suit with the opposition. They don't normally do that, right? But it would have to be the government that approves that bill.
Yeah, no, they could. I mean, it's been Ms. Chender was wide open. They're going to introduce that legislation. There's nothing stopping the Conservative members from voting for it, right. Or they can do it themselves. They can introduce legislation themselves to do that. Anyway, there you go. All hope is not lost, but the provincial government, the Premier and company need to do something. I don't think the public will be pleased to have 3.9% like on January 1 and then 3.9% the next January 1.
Which compounds into a big increase over 2 years.
Yep.
James,
anyway,
appreciate it, sir. Have a good weekend.
Same to you. Thanks.
902-405-6000. It's that easy. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break.
Facts.
Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It's the Friday free-for-all. Your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. Lines are open, and there's a number of them there available for you if you want to get on. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Something we talked about this week, something we didn't talk about. It's a catch-all to get things off your chest as we head into another beautiful weekend here in Nova Scotia. The comments made by the U.S. ambassador seem to be resonating in the community today. I got an email from Ken earlier in the show. Says, I think Canadians should not be anti-American, but should be anti-Trump if we are all to survive this tariff war. Well, careful now, Ken. We're not supposed to call it a tariff war, according to Pete Hoekstra. We can only accomplish this from within the United States. To accomplish this thing, we need American allies, not airlines, allies who are upset with the Trump regime. He says if you ever listen to economics professor Ian Lee, a frequent guest of Todd and of Rob, of course, in the afternoon show, Professor Lee has voiced a similar point of view. It is the Trump Republican regime and not the American people that we should be against. And that comes to us from Ken. Ken, I will agree with you. And I did say that earlier, that I don't think that we're mad as a collective at Americans individually. I think we're mad at the regime, and the administration's probably a better term to call the U.S. president. That being said, if we're gonna get support within, that's a difficult row to hoe, is it not? Because it seems these days that the president of the United States becomes quite vindictive to those who are opposed to his points of view, and it'd be great if we saw a groundswell of support from the United States. I know we've seen Democrats and others have come out to support Canada. I know we had the governor of one of the New England states was up here in Atlantic Canada trying to drum up business. I saw an ad the other day from the city of all places, Philadelphia, that is put on an advertising campaign to try and entice Canadians to come back. But I think that the U.S. regime, the U.S. administration, the President Trump and his cabinet and his group of people have kind of brought this on themselves, right? And to come up here and to say that this is disappointing to hear on behalf of that government's representative in Canada is kind of out of bounds, in my opinion. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Greg to the show. Greg, how are you?
How you doing?
Good. It's on your mind.
Good. Talk about this trade bite. Well, let's put something out here. First of all, Donald Trump was elected by the people of the United States of America.
He was.
And his job is to take care of the interests of the people of the United States of America, not Canada, not Mexico, and not the rest of the world.
Okay.
The other thing is, which is brought up, for years and years, there's countries that have taken advantage of the United States, and we did over here. Okay? And that's got to stop. So he's doing it. We may not agree with it. That's why we have a government here to try to take care of our stuff. That's what Carney and them guys are supposed to do, is take care of our interests. But unfortunately, people don't see it that way, right? How about the fact that when I was in the military, we didn't have to worry about anything because the Americans are right next door. They'll take care of us.
Right.
You see? But now he's making us say, you guys got to pay 2% or whatever on your GDP on defense, which we haven't done in 15 years.
Right.
See, taking advantage of these states. So, not that I'm for him, but the thing is, we have to start standing up for ourselves. We have to start making our own ways, and that's what we have a government here. But poking fun at Trump and saying we don't like him and don't like him, that's fine. But there's nothing we can do about it. So anyway, I think Carney said one time, and he said, people got to realize this is the new world now. The tariffs are part of it now. Whether it's U.S., China, anywhere else, it's all part of it, and we have to live within it.
So, Greg, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels to me like you're suggesting that this current set of tariffs and this trade war, whatever we want to call it, between the United States is okay.
No, it's not okay. But on the flip side, there's nothing you and I can do about it.
Sure,
we're not Americans. We can't vote. Okay, we can yell and scream all we want.
And why can't we yell and scream all we want about it?
Yeah, that's right. But what I'm saying is, we have to try to live within it. We just got off. You talk about trade tariffs. What about what the Liberals did with their carbon tax? And people down here could barely make ends meet because the carbon tax makes everything made all the prices expensive. Nobody said much about that now, did they?
Well, I think you're wrong. I think there was a lot said about it.
Yeah, there was. But what? When did they do something? Oh, during the election campaign, let's take it off. Oh, just nice. But I'm just saying, the fact is, we have to live within our means. We have to live, okay, we may not like what's going on. No, I agree, and I get it. But again, that's why we have members of parliament. We have a government there to try to do something. And this is on Carney's people. Now, you got to bring up plan B. If you want to get up there and just start, trading barbs with them, well, fine. But maybe sit down and try, hey, negotiate or something. There's a word that should be done. Negotiate with the man. Say, look, this. Maybe you can get something done, I think. But, I think the fact is that, whether you like Trump or not, the fact is he's standing up for the people of the U.S.
Is he?
They
is he
voted
really?
him in there.
Is he truly doing that?
I think he is. Yeah, okay. I think so, because he got voted in. Let's put it this way. He won the Senate, the House of Representatives, and he won a landslide victory. He won places that they never thought they'd win. Okay, so he got a clear message from the American people. This is what we want.
Yep.
You talk about the
and is he doing what? And Greg, let me ask you: Do you think that he's doing what the majority of people wanted him to do? And the reason I ask that is that if you ask somebody that's living along the U.S.-Canada border right now, if the president's representing their views, I think they'll have a different opinion than yours.
Maybe that's right. But you got to realize something also. Like, they're blaming him because Kimball and what's-his-face are out of a job. Well, Jimmy Kimball's ratings are in the toilet. And the Disney, they're losing money. The same thing with Colbert. $40 million to put on that thing, and the ratings are low. So basically what they said is that you're gone because you're ready. But they're trying to turn it into against Trump. Trump did this. And it's not true. Okay? ABC, the Disney, the ratings for these places, these things are very, very low. And as you know, being in the business that you're in, advertising dollar is what runs radio, TV, and all this stuff. Right? If there's 60,000 people that listen to your radio station every day, well, when you want to advertise, well, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's all about that. That's what this is all about.
Greg, appreciate it. Appreciate it, sir. We're up against the break. Have a good one. Have a great weekend. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break.
Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
All right, welcome back. It's the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. This is the Friday Free-for-All, your chance to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. And there are a couple of lines open if you want to get in the queue, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Before we go to the phones, during the break, I was in the process of trying to get some info on some of the stats that were laid out for us by our previous caller. About ratings and such, and it seems that whenever there's discussion about people who are, what's the word I'm looking for, that are critical of President Trump, then he immediately says that their ratings are awful and that they should be canceled and so on and so forth, and sometimes that vernacular gets carried through his supporters and those and so on and so forth. I did get an email from Lawrence during the break as I was looking up those numbers. Jimmy Kimmel Live averaging 1.772 million viewers, ranking second in the late night slot while achieving about 220,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demographic. That, for those of you that don't know, is what we can call the money demographic in broadcasting. That's where the national advertisers live. And then the email goes on to say total viewership for the second quarter of 2025, Jimmy Kimmel Live, 1.772 million, placing it second behind who? Late Show with Stephen Colbert, who had 2.417 million viewers. Now, I don't know where he got it, but he sent me some links, and I haven't had a chance to dig all the way through it. But just because the President of the United States says something doesn't necessarily mean that it is, in fact, true. I think there are many cases where that's not the case. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's back to the phones, and we welcome John to the program. John, how are you?
How you doing, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind today, sir?
Okay, I think Carney's doing a great job by not doing anything when it comes to the tariffs. And the reason why I want to say that, a little background about the tariffs. Say if I had a product that was $100, and I'm Canadian, so American wants to buy that product at $100, and there's a 25% tariff on it.
Right.
Well, he's going to have to pay $125.
Right.
Now, $25 goes to the government of the United States. That's where they're getting the money. And the United States people are going to start realizing sooner or later why these tariffs are being hit them, that all their food prices and gas prices and everything else is up because of Trump. Trump is behind all of this. And I hope people understand what a tariff means. And if Kearney applies tariffs to Donald Trump,
then we
it's
pay.
Only going to hurt Canadians.
Yes. No,
right?
I get that, John.
So
but
he
see,
didn't do nothing.
And I understand your point, and you're right. You're absolutely correct. But the problem is, if you're selling a product at $100 in the United States, and there's somebody down there that was your competitor that was selling it at $112, when you have to pay that extra tariff, then the American product becomes cheaper, right? And that's where Canadian businesses lose.
Right, but that's just a time thing. They went to Canadians first because of quality, maybe, or something else.
Well, and I think
right?
I think the advantage of the advantage of the U.S. dollar over Canada was something that they looked at too, right?
Right, right. But what Curtis said, let's just leave it alone, and we'll wait it out. It's going to hurt the American people sooner or later, and they're already complaining. And this Kimmel thing, load of crap when it comes to losing money. I mean, Trump was out there throwing all this stuff out, and if they can't understand it or can't say anything about it, what do they call it? fake news. Now, I don't know about you, but how would you put out fake news with CBC, CTV, MSN, CNN, all these other stations? How many people you would have to control or manipulate to get out the fake news? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a load of crap. It's a load of crap, and people down there are sucking it up like it's water, right? They're sucking up, oh yeah. But it's only a small amount of people. It's only, when you have 340 million people in the United States, if you have 10% that are pro-Trump, they are the ones that are hollering the loudest. It's not the regular people, right? Anyway, that's what I want to say about the whole thing. So I think Carney, by going to Mexico and going to different areas, he is doing a fantastic job by diversifying our trade policies.
John, have a good weekend, sir.
Thank you, Brett. Have a good weekend.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Calvin to the program. Calvin, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
Good. It's on your mind.
Well, what's on my mind is gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
According to Rob Snow, winter gas prices came into effect yesterday, and the price of gas in most provinces went down in the vicinity of 10 cents. Why is it we only went 4?
That's a fair question. I've been trying to get that answer for many years, Calvin.
And in addition to that, our premier has been less than honest with us when he says that there's nothing that he can do to help Nova Scotians cushion the price of a liter of fuel at the pump. When the reality is, if you do believe that we need gas price regulation, and I don't necessarily do believe that, but if you do believe that, then why wouldn't he bring our gas price regulation in line with the way it's operated in New Brunswick so that companies like Costco will put in gas bars? I filled up the other day in Moncton, and the price of a liter of fuel there is about 10 cents a liter cheaper than what it is here. So there's plenty that he can do.
Calvin, have a great weekend.
Dan, there's one more thing.
Very quickly. I got lots of callers today.
All right, very quickly. When you report on the price of fuel on the news on Friday morning, if you're going to tell me how much was paying last year, then tell me what's really important, and tell me how much a barrel of oil was at this point last year also. That makes it relevant.
Fair. Appreciate it, Calvin.
Okay.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-825. In case you're curious as to what Calvin was talking about, the difference in the regulatory regime between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. New Brunswick sets a maximum price, right? In Nova Scotia, we set a minimum price. So there is gives the stations in New Brunswick a chance to try and they don't have to. There can be a difference in opinion, I'll say, with regards to what the price is. When you set a minimum price, you take all that out of the market. I've had that discussion many times with many people in many different places, and nobody can really give me a good reason why we don't do the same thing and why we need regulation now. I just don't understand that. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Fred to the program. Fred, how are you?
Yeah, good, Dan. I can only laugh at the U.S. ambassador to Canada's comments over the last day or so.
Sure.
I'll use a euphemism. When the bully in the playground turns around and kicks sand on your face on a continual basis and then demands your lunch money given to him, you got 3 choices. You pick his side and you be on the side of the bully. You give up your lunch money. Or you turn around and say, no, I'm not going to give up my lunch money, and it's mine, and I'm going to fight you against this. And I don't think Canadians are the ones that want to give up their lunch money too quickly, nor are other countries. There are some, but not all. And I think we've got to be very careful when we're dealing with this guy, because when you have a Republican Party that's going so far right that he's actually going into authoritarian and fascist ideology. Now, I'm not calling the U.S. a fascist country, but I am calling the government proper getting awfully close to doing that, where he wants to control the media. He is utilizing religious ideology, and he is basically bullying everybody around the world to his, whatever you want to call it, way of looking at the world through his rose-colored glasses. Then we're in a world of hurt. And I think that what you're seeing is the reaction of, yes, there is some kowtowing going towards the U.S. president, but we're also diversifying. I heard just yesterday, I think it was, they're looking at taking the defense contracts and going towards Europe, which I think is a good idea, because then we can turn around and be the central focal point of where we were back in World War II and getting our own ammunition, our own aircraft, our own ships, our own stuff. And I think we have to go that way. There is no choice in this matter. Whether Trump stays in 2 more years later after the midterms or what, this is going to have to be the new regime or the new way of life, I think.
Fred, have a great weekend.
Yep, bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Friday Free-for-All Open Hour continues after the break. Welcome back. It's the Friday Free-for-All. Vanessa suggests I need a massage chair in here. I think that's smart thinking right there. Anyway, might be a birthday present for us. Speaking of birthdays, did you know that this radio station's about to turn 20? Can you believe it's been that long already? Just think back of the iterations of all the people that have sat in this very chair, right? We had Andrew Crystal, the late Andrew Crystal. And then, of course, beaming in from New Brunswick at that time was our good friend Tom, right, who is no longer with us, and I miss him just about every day as well. And, of course, then came Geordie Morgan, and then after that, the late, great Rick Howe, whom this studio is named after, and Todd Veinotte is picking up the mantle and moving forward. So it's been 20 years. Couldn't have done it without y'all, and we truly do appreciate that. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's get back to the phones and welcome Tyler to the program. Tyler, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. Great to speak with you today.
What's on your mind today, sir?
Yes. So first, I was calling about Kimmel, but the comments from Pete Huckster, we're calling him.
That's what the media is calling him. I didn't, but that's what they are.
Okay. Well, you know what? I know that people aren't about to take any lessons from the American administration, but to a point, I feel like he's right. Elbows Up, to me, at least had something to do with Orange Man Bad. There may have been some patriotism involved as well, but you know, to need an excuse like Trump to express your patriotism shows that it's not all about patriotism, in my view. But the main thing I called about was this cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel.
Right.
Now, I think people need to appreciate, if Colbert's show was losing money, which apparently it was, losing tens of millions of dollars a year.
According to the President of the United States. Don't know that for sure.
Well, if he says it, in some people's mind, it's automatically wrong. But I think it came directly from the network. That was their excuse, was that it was, or their reasoning was that it was a financial decision. Okay. And if Kimmel's ratings are worse than Colbert's, then it stands to reason.
Yeah, they are, yep.
Network television is unbelievably expensive. We're seeing a downsizing of that across the board.
But Tyler, let me ask you this question: If we're going to go down that road, then why now? Like, why all of a sudden is Colbert, losing too much money and we don't need him anymore, and so on and so forth? Like, what? Why now? Why in 2025? Why not 2023 or 2022 when we were in the middle of the pandemic?
Well, I can't answer that, to be honest with you, but I think that it came along as an excuse, and they took it. I can't give you a clear answer on that. But why is it that if it was Trump's fault, why wouldn't he have canceled Kimmel a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I don't think Trump really has anything to do with it. But
he does have a pretty strong connection to the chairman of the FCC, does he not?
Yes, he does. He does. That's true. But
so that's the guy who holds the licenses, right?
He did, but the license wasn't revoked, as far as I understand.
No, it wasn't. It was a network decision.
They may be holding a knife over their head. But I'll just make a quick point before I leave you. And I do agree with the conclusion that cancel culture is to blame. It's a little rich coming from the left, but I got to the same conclusion through a different form of reasoning. Jimmy Kimmel was never a political comedian. In fact, if anything, he was politically incorrect. If you go back and you look at the early years of Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he did a show with
but I think he's been making fun of presidents for the most of the time that he's been on there, has he not?
Yeah, I understand that, but the thing is that he never made fun of Biden. Certainly.
Oh, sure he did. Oh, absolutely he did.
Maybe he did. Maybe you're right. I think that there's a difference between partisanship and being a political satirist. And Jimmy Kimmel is blatantly partisan. There's no doubt about it. He's a party hack. But cancel culture was what turned him into that. He couldn't have done something like The Man Show today. And so he did. He's just saying what he's told to say. He's making a career that would have been cut short 10 years ago if he was trying to do the same type of comedy.
I think we're going to agree to disagree on that one, sir.
Well, no problem. You're doing a great job, Dan.
Have a good one. Have a good weekend, Tyler. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I struggle to suggest that late night comic is just saying what he's being told to say. I truly do. And I think that we're not just Jimmy Kimmel. I think right down the line, right? We've Colbert and Kimmel and Fallon and Myers and all of the other ones that the president has called out saying they should be canceled. Just saying. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? I lost my notes. There we are. Let's welcome Eric to the program. Eric, how are you?
I'm very good, Dan. It's a wonderful day outside, man.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
Best place in the world to live in the fall is the Maritimes.
I got you, brother. Listen, when I look at this impasse in the United States right now, what's been going on for the last 20 years, a quote that comes to my mind is, "A kingdom divided will fall." And this exactly, I think the United States has found itself in. There seems to be no room now for different opinions. And for an example, Charlie Kirk was labeled as a right-wing fanatic. He's anything but. He is actually a classic liberal, and the United States was founded on classic liberalism. That is to have the right to own property, have the right to own a business, have the right to have freedom of speech, have the right to have freedom of religion. And he was quite willing to sit down and talk with people, put his point of view out, and then listen to other people's point of view and see if they can find common ground.
And Eric, I'll agree with you to a point, Eric, that we have lost the ability to have that discussion now.
Okay.
Right? No, I think we will because it used to be that you could have a difference of opinion and then you could debate, you could even argue things, and then you would walk off in your different directions. But now it escalates and escalates and escalates into what we saw.
Right. So one of my final points here is that if you look at Jimmy Kimmel, now I don't think he should have been let go. Now, if he did say things that were incorrect and that were unfounded, he definitely should be reprimanded. And we'll let his boss, his people, look after that. And perhaps if he was wrong and if he's a genuine person, he'll apologize. I mean, that's all there's to it. And people are smart enough to realize if somebody's saying something that doesn't make any sense, let them say it. But at the end of the day, people are intelligent enough to say, okay, he's wrong, and just let it go. All this hatred is just absolutely crazy, and it makes absolutely no sense. And the United States is going to rip apart, and it already is, if we keep on pointing the finger at each other instead of admitting our mistakes and moving towards a common ground, which you just suggested.
Can't argue that point, Eric. I really can. I truly hope that it doesn't, because nobody wants to see this thing escalate into more violence. I think you're probably on the same page with me. But that being said, it's certainly dark times, and it's quite scary to watch.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I'm almost 80, and I look at growing up through the 50s, where we all had so much optimism, and I look at the state of our children today. They're running around paranoid. They don't know if they're coming or going, and they get so many different influences and influencers, not actually based on fact, oftentimes. So, anyways, let's hope that God blesses us and that we get through this. And I hope that you have a great weekend and keep on doing what you're doing, Dan, because it's certainly a service to the community.
Appreciate it, Eric. Have a fantastic weekend, and I appreciate each and every one of you that took the time out of your days to dial the numbers. My apologies to those that we didn't get to. Don't forget, we're going to open up the telephone lines again on Monday, and if you want to join the show, call early. That way you can try to avoid disappointment. We're going to stop. Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. And when we come back, we're turned to focus on the upcoming session of the legislature. We heard from Claudia Chender. We heard from the Premier earlier this week. What does this mean for business? What are small and medium-sized businesses looking for when the politicians get back to work for however long it is? We don't know. Director with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Duncan Robertson, will be joining us on the program. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Halifax. Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Welcome back. It's the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show as we roll towards the weekend. Vanessa Van Inez is dancing. That must mean we're getting closer to the finish line and into the weekend. So that is always my indication. It's like those signs of spring and signs of fall. The signs that the Friday show's coming to a conclusion is Vanessa starts to get her groove on, so to speak, in the control room as we get ready to roll forward. We've been focusing a bit this week on the return of the legislature, which is scheduled to happen next week here in Halifax as provincial politicians, after a long break, get back to business and the business of the House. And, of course, the political parties gearing up their agendas for these sessions, even though we really don't know how long they are. And I know that many of you out there are going to be paying close attention to see what the Premier has planned. And one of those groups and organizations out there that will also be keeping an eye on the goings-on at Province House is the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, who have some perhaps wants and asks of the government as we get ready to head back to that next session. On the phone with me today from CFIB is Duncan Robertson. Duncan, how are you?
Great. How about yourself? Just a few minutes left of the weekend for you folks.
It is. It's almost the weekend. Can you believe it? Anyway, Duncan, of course, your organization has an opportunity to perhaps maybe try and sway government on decisions that are made. And I know that there's a couple of files that you're keeping close eye on this time around as we get back to work at Province House. And one of them has to do with that contingency fund the Premier announced for people dealing with blowback from the trade war that the U.S. ambassador says isn't a trade war.
Absolutely. And since the start of the trade war, we've seen, a significant drop in confidence of our membership. And we haven't really seen a rebound since early 2025. And we think a way that we could add more confidence to our economy here in Nova Scotia would be a clear plan for that $200 million contingency fund set out in the 2025-2026 budget. When we look at the federal level, they have already released their regional tariff response initiative. So we think it's high time that we get some kind of plan from the provincial government here, particularly when we see the elimination of the de minimis in terms of the free trade within the United States. And it's going to have an impact for sure. And it's time for a very clear plan, because it's no time for a rainy day fund. We need that action right now.
This is something you and I have talked about on a number of different occasions, not necessarily this fund, but having a roadmap laid out for business so that they can plan things around it.
Absolutely. And this is another clear example, but we're also looking at, over the past few months in the summer, there's been definitely some disruption. We have, the usual construction, but also, of course, the wildfires, supply chain disruptions, and again, just the ongoing tariff situation. So it's been anything but clear over the past few months for small businesses. And again, the fall session, is no matter how long or short it may be, does provide that opportunity for the provincial government to really step up and show a clear plan for how they hope to support small businesses. And it's not just with consumers, but we're also seeing an impact for business-to-business interactions. So if a larger industrial business gets impacted by tariffs, that trickles down and impacts small businesses who serve them. So again, we just need some clarity to provide the environment that small businesses need over the next few months and hopefully into the new year.
Something else that we talked about and sometimes I think gets forgotten in the discussion about this ongoing, can I call it a building boom, and particularly here on the peninsula. I'm looking out the window and seeing a ton of cranes in the air, and you don't have to look very far to see the trucks and the loaders and that kind of thing, and the backhoes and such, and having driving through downtown Halifax as of late, there's construction everywhere. You're looking for some support from government that for businesses that are dealing with this and perhaps seeing a loss of business as a result of this construction.
Yeah, absolutely. The growth you described is, growth is not a bad thing, but unfortunately small businesses are often facing the growing pains. When we look at the top impact on small businesses in Nova Scotia in terms of their sales or productivity, over a half cite insufficient demand as an impact. So, of course, the trade situation had a result of that. But when we see large-scale construction making it harder for consumers to access small businesses, that's a big concern. Over the past 5 years, we've seen 72% of our members being impacted by construction. So what we want to see in the fall session is the legislation on the floor to allow municipalities to provide direct financial support to small businesses most impacted by construction. Of course, as it's said many times, municipalities are a creature of the province, and they do need that authority to provide that support. We've seen municipalities like Montreal, Quebec City, they've introduced these kind of funds, and we think it's time for Halifax and municipalities across Nova Scotia to try and really adopt that, because it would show that the municipality does have a role to play here. And we've heard time and time again, Dutch Village Road, for example, small businesses looking for that support and really calling on the municipality to provide that fund, and the municipality needs the province to buy in too. So hopefully this fall session we can see some legislation on the floor. That would really be a good first step and hopefully give some support going into construction season next year.
We know there's some external pressures that are going to hit or impact small and medium-sized businesses here, not necessarily this fall, but as early as January 1 with an increase in power rates and a water rate increase. The province has said that they want to intervene on this. Is CFIB and are your members looking for some leadership from the Premier on this to try and either reduce that number or at least give them some kind of roadmap that they can expect to see from these increases?
Yeah, it's good to see the province step in. Also on the power file, there is also a small business intervener who is also stepping in, right. Which is good to see. But yeah, it is up to the province really to provide the regulatory environment to, we think, force Nova Scotia Power as well as other utilities to provide a roadmap over the next 5 and 10 years on where those rates are going to be. It provides clarity for consumers and for small businesses, but also some transparency on where these rates are going and allowing people to hold these utilities to account. So we'll see what is the result of the province intervening. at the end of the day, we appreciate more voices coming to the table and really citing that impact. Then we'll have to see at the end of the day what happens. But again, a way that the province can step in, regardless of this kind of the UARB hearing, is to create that roadmap, forcing utilities to really show where they plan to go, and that's a good step.
Duncan, don't want to put any words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like you're looking for action rather than words.
Yeah, I mean across all files, not just the power file, but all files. We do appreciate when governments do step up and say the right things. But this fall session, we're looking to put those words into action and hopefully have a good result for our members heading into the winter months. It's been a good tourism season. It's shaky at some points, but this is really in the fall where many small businesses really lay the foundation to get through the winter months, and that also has a role to play with government, and government needs to lay that foundation too.
Duncan, I appreciate it, sir. Have a fantastic weekend.
Anytime, you too.
That is Duncan Robertson from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, keeping a close watch on the goings-on at Province Houses. The provincial government gets, and this is almost a bad word to say, back to work. We know that work goes on when they're not in session, but this is the very public stuff. This is where the legislation gets introduced and gets passed in the House. And I urge the Premier to let's be transparent with what these with some of these things that he is suggesting he'll bring forward that will help not only small business, because hey, when small business gets a helping hand, then that usually trickles down to us, doesn't it? Right? If businesses know where they can set their price points at, then we may not see all these increases at the stores, and it drives me bananas. Anyway, going to stop, take another break. We know that Scotiabank Centre is going to be rocking tomorrow night because the Halifax Mooseheads are going to be in town and on the ice as they kick off their season. Of course, they begin tonight on the road in Charlottetown, but tomorrow is the home opener. But the Scotiabank Centre is not just a hockey rink. There is all kinds of things going on at the facility this coming year. And they let us a little peek into what's happening in the fall season at Scotiabank Centre. And I can tell you there's a lot of exciting things coming. We'll dig into it when we have a conversation with the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at Events East. Suzanne Fougere will be joining us. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. It's Friday. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
Vanessa just reminded me that we're not done yet. No, I'm kidding. Was having a conversation out there. I hope you're having a fantastic day. As I mentioned, Scotiabank Centre is much more to this community than just a hockey rink. I know the hockey rink tends to get a lot of fans out, and we do support our Mooseheads, do we not? But there's an awful lot of events that happen there, and this fall is no exception to that. I'm very pleased to welcome to the program Executive Vice President of Events East Group, and that's Suzanne Fougere. Suzanne, how are you? And happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Dan. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am well. Now, the Mooseheads obviously are going to be there on Saturday and kick off their season. And, of course, we often talk about, and it's become very popular, and that's the Thunderbirds. The sporting events are kind of important to the goings-on at that facility.
Yes, that's right. So we're so excited. Our season officially kicks off tomorrow night with the Mooseheads versus the Charlottetown Islanders. And like you said, our two tenants, the Halifax Mooseheads and the Halifax Thunderbirds, are really the core of what we do here. And there's nothing quite like getting hockey season underway, not only just for us, but for the Mooseheads and then for everyone in the downtown community. It's a great way to kick off the fall.
And obviously is those long-term clients that get lots of dates, and we get lots of people in the seats, and that's good for the facility.
It's wonderful. So they obviously help us keep the facility busy year-round. And this year in particular, we're expecting over 105 events. And probably, we'll be upwards of 480,000 fans through our doors.
Wow!
And when we drive those fans through our doors, it also means they're coming downtown to the city. They're in the restaurants. They're in bars before and after. So it certainly creates a lot of vibrancy. And And I know I heard you say in a bit of your intro, we're more than just a hockey rink, and we have a wonderful lineup of concerts this year as well. And we have our first major concert coming up next week with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and then we're just into a great series of live entertainment mixed in with amazing sporting events all year long.
Right. Lynyrd Skynyrd and Bryan Adams is coming, Foreigner's coming, Sarah McLachlan's coming. The list goes on and on and on.
It does. It goes on and on and on and all the way through to the back half of the year. And then, of course, we're very excited in November that we're hosting the Canadian Curling Trials.
Right.
So we're hosting that here at Scotiabank Centre, and then we have our partners as well in Liverpool and Wolfville, who are hosting part of the trials. And that event will see over 100,000 tickets issued. And again, you can imagine just how many people that means will be all over downtown Halifax, as well as in those sister communities, to watch the very best in Canadian curling, and a moment where somebody will be crowned to go to the Olympics, both for men's and women. So it'll be a pretty special moment here at Scotiabank Centre throughout the curling trials.
Can't tell you how excited I'm about those trials. It's the epitome of Canadian curling, and anybody that's a curling fan will want to be there or watch it, but it's better to be there than to watch it because you get to feel the whole event when you're there. I haven't been to the trials, but I've been to the Worlds and to the Brier and to the Scotties, and they're I think it's safe to say they're a lot of fun.
They are. There's nothing quite like a hockey fan, but also curling fans are pretty special too, and they know how to have a great time.
And not to prejudge anything, but these trials could be a swan song for an Atlantic Canadian, because Brad Gushue, who won the curling trials here 20 years ago, this is his last season, so we may get to say goodbye to him. So that's an extra special event.
It would be it's a wonderful way to send him off, and somebody I think who's been iconic in the sport and iconic here in the Atlantic region. And he was here when we made the announcement that we had won the trials, and I think even that was a pretty special moment. So getting to see him here compete one last time, I think will be special, not only for him and his team, but for all of us as well.
Suzanne, I know you guys track these kind of things, and you mentioned it a bit earlier when we have events, when we have a concert or we have a curling trial at Scotiabank, that people don't just go to the rink, they migrate into the downtown core. Do we know what kind of economic impact that facility has had over the years?
We do. So when, since 2018, we do track it. We track it every year, and since 2018, we've hosted 600 events that have generated $230 million in economic impact. So just to kind of put that into context, if you think about a year like the one we're in right now, we'll have 105 events through the venue at least, over 480,000 fans, and that will result in direct spending in our downtown community as well as in the province of $46 million in impact. So it's certainly not insignificant, and it's really important for us, obviously, that people have an amazing time and make great memories when they're in the building, whether it's at a concert or a Thunderbirds game or a Mooseheads game. But it's equally as important for us that our fans and our business drive vibrancy across our province and through our downtowns and our city streets. And we're so happy that we're opening back up for a busy fall season, and that all of our neighbors around us are ready for that energy as well.
Had a conversation earlier with Peter Simon, who of course is one of the owners of the Halifax Mooseheads, with his father, and said the game experience may be a little bit different this year. Some new additions to Scotiabank Centre.
Yeah, we had a very busy summer of capital projects in the building, and I think what Peter would have been referring to is something that people are going to see for the very first time in full effect tomorrow night. We've just installed a brand new digital advertising ribbon in the building, so it connects with our video board, also fully connected through the concourse of the building and on the exterior. And that's great for our advertising partners, but it's also great for fan experience. It just helps create such an amazing level of energy in the building. And last year we had some investments that the Mooseheads made in some special lighting systems, and the now infamous moose that comes down from the ceiling whenever they score a goal. So all of those things combined really transformed what it feels like to sit in the stands during Mooseheads game, and I think people are going to be in for a great time.
I think infamous is a good way to describe that.
It is a bit infamous. I don't know if you've seen it. But
I have. Absolutely, I have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite special, and I think it's been a great addition to the fan experience.
Also, one of the things I like about going to events at Scotiabank Centre, of course, I like the concessions. And there's some new offerings this year, too.
Yes, we just actually made a transition to a new food and beverage partner. So we're working with Aramark Canada, and they've had a couple of test events here through the summer, and they will go fully live tomorrow evening. And for those that have been with us for a while, you will notice some significant improvements in terms of wait times, the convenience and locations of where some of the food is, some new offerings that they'll be rolling out, and we're really excited to be partnering with them and see where they can help us take the fan experience as well in the longer term. They've been a great partner, and it's a big transition for us, so we're excited to let the fans taste and try everything tomorrow night.
Suzanne, a busy fall. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Dan.
That is Suzanne Fougere, the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at Events East. It's not only the home opener for the Halifax Mooseheads tomorrow night. You're going to get to see all this new stuff very first, right? There's a lot of new things happening, and to be honest with you, is there really anything better in the world than an arena hot dog? Just saying. We're going to stop. We're going to take a break. Blake is going to update us on what's going on in the news. And on the other side of it, it's time for our weekly visit with the weather guy. Allister Aalders, our weather specialist, will be joining us right after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Friday. We're back in minutes.
Imagine if today was the day your idea changed someone's life. Imagine if you could help someone pay for college, help your community build a new playground, or help a child make it to that dream competition. With GoFundMe, it's all possible. GoFundMe is the world's #1 fundraising platform trusted by over 190 million people. Every week, ordinary people meet their goals and do extraordinary things. Your ideas matter. GoFundMe isn't just for emergencies. Want to raise money for your kid's soccer team or raise funds for a small business, a creative project, or event? GoFundMe helps you turn ideas into reality. And help adds up. Fundraisers you start for someone else raise up to 5 times more. So think right now, who could use your help? Change rarely comes from waiting. It comes from someone deciding, today I'll start. Don't wait for someone else to bring change. Today, start your fundraiser in just minutes at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com to start your fundraiser. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
Welcome back. It's the Friday edition, the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're on the cusp of a weekend, and of course, one of the major questions that people have when we get ready for a weekend is, what's going to happen with the weather, Dan? Well, I don't know, but I know somebody that does, and he's just jumped in the studio here, fresh off of looking at all of the updated data that comes out here just before noon, and has done his calculations and has got his slide rule out and his abacus out, and he doesn't even know what I'm talking about. And that laugh, of course, comes from our weather specialist, Allister Aalders. Allister, how are you?
I am great, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday. Looking out the window today, we saw some rain yesterday, right? It was a little bit damp. And it was that rain that I think that many of us have been looking for, but it just wasn't long enough, right?
Not long enough, not enough. I mean, we like I said the other morning, I mean, we'll take anything at this rate, especially if we're not going to get a widespread rainfall. But, you know, it was certainly welcome, but not everyone, unfortunately, was treated to it. It was a very weak offshore low, so much of the rain was along and just off the Atlantic coast. So once again, places like the Valley and parts of, you know, northern Nova Scotia, once again, received little, if any, rain and showers. So it's you know, we certainly welcome it. They would really welcome it. I mean, certainly I think the fire crews, which I know the Long Lake wildfire is still being held, but they in their updates, they have been saying that they're dealing with, increasingly dry conditions just because, you know, this week it has been sunny and warm with not a lot of rain. I mean, you know, month to date, here in Halifax, at least, we've only had, you know, 15 to 25 millimeters on average generally. So, you know, we are still in a very big rainfall deficit, and we need to change that pattern around. And there's I don't want to say some signs that it's starting to change. I'd say more opportunities for wet weather showers as we go towards the end of the month, and then hopefully maybe that trend will continue. But, this weekend and into the start of next week, there's not a lot of rain to talk about.
And people don't know how to dress because you're looking out in the morning, and we're getting those longer mornings now. That's dark, right?
Yeah.
And it's September, and there's neighborhood trees are turning, and like this morning, I got up and maybe I should have checked the forecast first, but I didn't. And I put on a light jacket, and I got in the truck and I looked at my temperature gauge, or my thermometer in my truck. And it was like 16 degrees.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and parts of the province have been having a few chilly mornings recently, but it was incredibly mild last night, much milder than we would usually see at this time of year. When I was coming in, I was like, okay, do I need the jacket? I don't think I do. Tomorrow, you're going to need the jacket. We're going from, we were in the mid-20s earlier in the week. Today, we're expected in the low 20s. Tomorrow, only, depending on where you are, 15 to 17 in HRM. So, we're going from, this warm, somewhat humid air mass to
we had humidity this week.
There's humidity that we've been talking about to a very chilly fall-like, and of course fall arrives on Monday, but a very chilly fall-like air mass, especially during the night times. Temperatures, depending on where you are in the province, are going to be, generally mid-single digits overnight tonight, mid to high single digits, but some of those lower-lying locations that are prone to get just a bit colder than, everywhere else. Some of those inland, valleys and more mountainous areas, they could be down into the range of, maybe 1 to 4 degrees tonight.
So I have to ask the question because people are out there going, is the F word in the
which one? Which one, Dan?
Well, the frost word. We can't say the other one on the radio, Allister.
Yeah, but there's flurries, Dan.
No, we don't talk about those either. But the frost word, because people obviously still have vegetables in the garden and they still have plants out.
Yeah, at this point, there's no frost advisory in effect for Nova Scotia. They posted advisories in parts of central and northwestern New Brunswick where it's definitely looking like it'll be down near or even maybe a bit below freezing overnight tonight. But certainly for the inland and lower-lying locations in the province, especially the farther north and east you are, I think Halifax itself is in the clear, but some of those inland lower-lying locations that could get down to, we measure temperature at about 2 meters above the ground, it'll be near, say, 2 or 3 degrees overnight tonight, so the ground itself could be close enough to the freezing mark that we do see a bit of patchy frost developing overnight. So certainly if you do have any frost-sensitive plants, best to cover them up or bring them in overnight tonight.
Best to be safe.
And again, probably on Saturday night into Sunday as well, just because it will be cool again. But then temperatures start to warm back up as we welcome
that's
fall.
What my next question was. We have I'm going to say relatively cool weekend in store, but what does the start of the work week look like?
Yeah, I just mentioned, Saturday 15 to 17 for the daytime highs. By Sunday, we're back up to, near 19, maybe for some 20 degrees. And then by, Monday, the first day of fall, we're near 20, maybe for some 21 degrees. And Tuesday, 21, 22 degrees. So the normal high for this time of year is around 18 degrees and falling each week. It's going to be warmer than average to start, and then things do look to level out a bit as we go later next week with increased chances for some showers in the forecast, around Wednesday of next week. But we're still in a bit of a roller coaster this year, and of course, at this time of year, sea surface temperatures play a bigger role when. Early in the summer, it's a lot cooler along the coast because the ocean is so cool. Well, now the ocean has warmed up a lot, so you have that onshore wind. The coastlines are staying quite mild, not just at night, but even in the afternoons as well.
I saw people swimming this week.
Not surprised. It's, sea surface temperatures are still, somewhat in the, upper teens, maybe for some still near 20.
The rest of the world goes, I would never swim in that, Allister, but for us, upper teens is warm.
Yeah, that's you can get right in when it's 15 degrees for some people.
Yeah.
But we're still in, because obviously our temperatures, daily temperatures, fluctuate with great variability, but our oceans cool and warm much slower. So obviously the warm oceans are still there. I mean, if you want to go to the beach this weekend, the ocean temperature might be a bit warmer than the air temperature on Saturday, depending on what beach you're at.
5 degrees.
Ooh,
yeah, it would be cold. Allister saw some media coverage this week on activity in the Atlantic Basin. I understand if it hasn't already, the next named storm of the season is out there.
Yes, we talked about this, I think, briefly last week, but we did get Tropical Storm Gabrielle earlier this week. It's been really struggling to maintain itself, just really dealing with unfavorable weather conditions. But it does appear that as we go later this weekend into next week, conditions become more favorable and it will likely strengthen into a hurricane. But the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center has it to the east of Bermuda. So there was some uncertainty if maybe it would get a bit closer, be a concern for them. And then we get that recurve where it's tracking towards generally the northwest over the coming days, but by Monday and then into Tuesday takes a sharp right-hand turn towards the northeast. So the center forecast to stay well south of our region, impacts well south of the region. So Gabrielle, not a storm that we thankfully have to worry about.
I think we need to coin another meteorological term for that recurve. We'll call it the Nova Scotia recurve.
The Nova Scotia recurve.
Right?
There we go.
Stay away. We do not want you to visit us.
But I mean, very important that we don't let our guard down because we've just come off the peak of hurricane season. But as we know, the peak here in Nova Scotia is generally September through October. We've had storms in October before, so always important to not let your guard down, especially, I find later in the season we get some of those more remnant systems that maybe a tropical storm or a subtropical storm can form, off the East Coast and end up moving in. And I know that's what a lot of people from the comments I'm seeing on social media would like. I think they want the tropical moisture,
but not the wind.
We can run into issues with tropical downpours too. I know the sentiment is just, we want the rain that it would bring, but certainly we, at this time of year we do have to watch those systems as they can form. And we will continue to do so.
Had somebody in the agricultural sector describe what the soil is like right now because of the drought conditions that we're in, and they say it's hard, it's cracked and crusty.
Yes.
And if we do get one of those 100 millimeter storms, it would take a significant amount of that water to sit on it in order to loosen it up enough so that the ground can absorb it. So if we do get a 100 millimeter storm, it'll just run off into the rivers and lakes.
That is the biggest problem with this drought situation is we really need the rain, but we need lighter, longer lasting or at least consistent rain events to get that top layer of soil to at least start being able to absorb that rain again. Because like you mentioned, if we were to have a very heavy downpour or a 50 millimeter event in a few hours move through, I mean, it would just all pretty much run off, and then there's really not a lot of benefit to, except for the lakes and the streams.
As long as the rivers stay in their banks.
Well, right.
So
you run into a lot of issues with runoff, potential flooding, depending on the type of event. So it's not an easy solution for the drought. We will just hope that the pattern starts to favor more frequent, light, longer lasting rain events than these few showers that only seem to come through for a couple of hours at a time.
He's Allister Aalders. You can hear his forecasts Monday through Friday on our radio station 95.7 News Radio. Allister, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great weekend.
We're going to take our last break. When we come back, the Blue Jays, Cecil's hating on this. He really is, because his Red Sox are falling back in the dust, but the Jays didn't have the best series in Tampa. My computers are going wild. What's going on? Anyway, we'll try and figure it out when we come back. All right, welcome back. It's Friday. We're almost done, but we can't end the week without having a conversation with our good friend and sports guru, and that, of course, is Cecil Wright. Cecil, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
Oh, the American League East. That's all I have to say about it, right?
Boy. Poor Red Sox, they're letting me down.
Right?
They
back.
lost-
They
they
what,
lost-
six games back now, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah. And they lost Roman Anthony, and, everything has been on a downhill vibe ever since. So, I think they've done as well as could be expected. They've had a lot of injuries, and I just like to still see them make the playoffs, and I want them to square off with the Yankees.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a series? Because there's no love lost between those two franchises.
No. Even though it's a younger rivalry now, there's still a little bit of animosity there. So you love that.
What is it with Tampa Bay at home and the Jays just can't win there?
I have no idea. Tampa Bay, I said earlier in the year that I don't care what their record is, in June or July. Come September, they find a way to get there. They have these pitchers you never heard of who just seem to come out of nowhere and shut you down.
And the Blue Jays bats went silent for 2 of those games.
Well, you got to give the Blue Jays a little bit of credit because they're missing Bichette, who I think is their best all-around hitter.
I think so, too.
And there's a lot of young guys that I couldn't even tell you their names who are doing a great job for the Blue Jays.
Well, that's just it, right? Everybody's kind of having a career year when they need to have a career year.
Yes, that's right. But I still can't see them, going all the way. Just can't see it.
You're never going to admit it, even if you did think they were.
No, I have to keep up my facade.
Fair enough. Cecil, of course, I think the Blue Jays' magic number to clinch is 3, and I think the league is 6. So the division is 6. So I'm assuming that you're going to see the Blue Jays in the postseason.
Oh yeah, no question about that. They're either going to win the division or they'll get that first wild card spot. But I think they're going to win the division myself, unless the Red Sox go in there and sweep them, which I just can't see that happening the way the Red Sox are kind of injured right now. But anything's possible. But I would not be betting on the Red Sox sweeping anybody right now.
That's why we play the games.
That's right.
Cecil, National Football League, we're getting a couple of games into the season now, and I think so far the biggest story is the Kansas City Chiefs not being able to put a win. They haven't won since the AFC Championship game.
You know something? I respect Travis Kelce a lot as a football player, but he is acting like a complete jerk all of a sudden.
Right.
If he doesn't get the ball, he's throwing his helmet down when he gets to the sidelines. Then there's a ball right in his hands. He dropped it, and it became an interception. I mean, you're going into the Hall of Fame at some point when your career is over. Act like you belong there. Don't act like you're, Donald Trump playing football.
The last week, of course, was the Super Bowl rematch. The Eagles and it was a good game, and the Chiefs. It was well played, I thought, with the exception of that turnover at the end, which kind of changed the whole game perspective. But it kind of gave us a look at what the Eagles have this year, and by most accounts, they're pretty solid.
Listen, they're defending champions for a reason,
right?
And I don't think that anybody in their division is really going to give them a hard test. And if they stay healthy, you could see a repeat.
You heard it here first.
Cecil,
right. I know you watch the AFC East real closely, considering that the Patriots play there. But that being said, Buffalo is off to a strong start, being 3-0, and a pretty significant come from behind win. One of those. Josh Allen seems to be playing well. He's got some weapons with him. The Bills are going to make noise again, and if the Chiefs don't turn things around in the American Football Conference.
Yeah, I still wouldn't forget about Baltimore yet. They're still in it, and they might have the best offense in the game, quite honestly. But you never know what can happen. Buffalo knocked them off. Of course, both teams scored, 40 points or so, something crazy like that. So I wouldn't overlook Baltimore, but I agree with you. I think that Buffalo is the best team, obviously, in the AFC East. I would argue that right now, at this point in time, they're the best team in the AFC, period.
Yeah. Well, if the Chiefs are in disarray, that's Baltimore. I never know. I really never know Baltimore, right? Because it's so dependent on Lamar Jackson and the game that he has.
That's right.
So
that's right.
The other big question mark I have, and it's in the AFC East, is the Dolphins. What is going on in Miami?
Who cares? I love it. And I think their head coach, Mike McDaniels, is that his name?
Yeah.
He just does not appear to have the same intensity that he's had in the past. And I wonder if the handwriting isn't on the wall for somebody to replace him within the next couple of weeks, unless they surprise us and win a game or two.
Well, there's from what I understand, some dissent in the locker room there. Tyreek Hill's not happy with the play of their quarterback. So it's and we're only 3 games in.
Yeah. Tyreek Hill should just shut his mouth and cash his checks. That guy, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the fastest guys in the league. Great receiver, but he's a nut. Come on, you and I both know it. He's another one of those guys that acts like a child sometimes on the sidelines. You don't need that in professional football.
Cecil, home opener tomorrow night, season opener tonight for the Halifax Mooseheads on the road in Charlottetown. I know we talked about this last week, but it's I'm feeling a different buzz this year around this team given their performance last year in the playoffs.
Listen, I told you before, I believe that this could be the year of the Moose. And if it's not going to be for lack of effort, because these guys, every single one of them, from what I've seen, they're intense, man. And, I just hope that the new coach is able to get the full attention of all the players. And, if they do what he says, this could be the year.
And, of course, you can catch all of those games right here on 95.7 News Radio tonight at 7. Garrett's back. He'll be on the call. And then, of course, the home opener tomorrow night. You'll hear it here on the radio as well. What's going on in local sports, Cecil?
Listen, what a weekend I got coming up. 1 o'clock on Sunday at St. Mary's University, Citadel High against C.P. Allen, and it's Alumni Day for those graduates of Citadel, St. Pat's, and
right.
QEH way back in the day, so it's going to be interesting.
Wow, should be a lot of people there then.
I think it will be packed.
Good.
Then I've got Dalhousie baseball starting at 1 o'clock on Sunday, a doubleheader versus UPEI. And then Sunday night, Game 2 of the Nova Scotia Senior Baseball League Finals, Halifax hosting Kentville. Should be excellent. What a weekend.
You are a busy, busy person, Cecil.
Busy beaver.
All right, man. Take care. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Have a good weekend.
That is our friend and sports guru, Cecil Wright. That's going to wrap it up here for another week. Hey, everybody, I really appreciate you spending some time with us. If you spent all week with us, that's fantastic. If you're just in and out, that's great as well. I thank each and every guest that took time out to join us, to spend some time with us, to give us some context on the stories of the day. I truly appreciate it. I really, truly appreciate all our listeners who take time out to dial the numbers and join the open hours. I learn something every time we do it. Vanessa Van Inez behind the glass, fantastic job doing what she does each and every day. It's going to be another nice weekend, everybody. There might be a shower or two, but if I've said it many times, this is the last official weekend of summer. This time of the year, the best time of the year to be in Nova Scotia. Get out there and enjoy what we have. People spend thousands of dollars and travel thousands of miles to come and see what we have right in our backyard. Have a great weekend, everyone. Be well, and remember, be kind to one another.